Okay, here we are, another new day. What day is it today? It's the 5th today, Wednesday, so that means it's Tuesday the 4th at home. It is 8:35 my time, 5:35 p.m. home time. 5:35 a.m. Feeling better, thank God. Now, took a little bit of a break from getting riled up today. Took an internet break in a way. Doesn't take much to watch different topics and go to rabbit holes and get upset. Anyway, we'll take a break from what's going on the planet, concentrate on the people's voices today. Sarah and I moved back to our usual place where we stay when we're here, where we have lots of friends. Alright, so I'm going to take a break from talking about the crazy shit show going on the planet and concentrate on hearing from all of the true, good, honest people of the planet that have come here. Now let's get into this. Man, we're missing our dogs. Counting the days to get home to the dogs. And more. Did I just screw that up? Here we go. Alright, listen to this. Don't know what this is about. Hi Steve, my name is Ed, and I watch your YouTube channel pretty often, and I've seen some pretty interesting stuff over the years. I live in northeastern Ohio, and I've seen at least 2 wolves and 1 black panther all in broad daylight. No shit, I want to see one of these black cats myself. I mean, I don't need it for proof, I just want to see one. One wolf was seen about 3 miles from here as the crow flies in a graveyard, and I can't recall where the other was. But the black panther was seen as I was driving I-90 to work one summer day in 2010. I was in the slow lane, and the speed limit was 65 miles per hour. Because I'm almost totally deaf, I'm an extremely alert driver, and I tend to browse to my left and right while I drive. In this way, I've avoided so many accidents with deer and dogs that it's not even funny. Well, I was clipping along and passing over Vrooman Road, Vrooman, V-R-O-O-M-A-N Road, on I-90, when I saw a large black cat with a sleek coat and long tail walking casually up someone's blacktop driveway. To say that we have cryptids prancing around in our forest is an understatement. The photo in this letter is one of those cryptids. This picture was taken by my next-door neighbor, who has been a long-time friend of mine. And I personally never saw the animal, but my neighbor sent the photo to me one blizzardy day in early January. He said this animal is over 6 feet long without the tail. I realize the picture is very small, but it was sent to my phone, and that's the only photo I have of it. It looks like a coy wolf, but at that size, I highly doubt that that is what it is. The pic was taken in broad daylight as well, and the animal is around 200 feet from my neighbor's back door, so you can imagine how big this thing is. He said it was bigger than his 120-pound bull mastiff. We have 2 female German shepherds, and there was no way I was going to let them out in the kennel that day without my supervision. The very next morning, around 3 a.m., I let both dogs out of the kennel to do their business, and our white German shepherd darted over the kennel fence and sniffed what had to be the biggest raccoon I've ever seen in my life, in the wild. Stormy, our white German shepherd, weighs around 80 pounds, and this raccoon had to be at least 50 pounds because it was over 2/3 as big as Stormy is. Our other German shepherd is about 90 pounds and didn't seem interested in it at all. She just did her business and walked around a bit while Stormy and Mr. Raccoon seemed to make friends and walk together along the kennel fence until Stormy couldn't go any further. Then I called them back inside, and the rest of the days since then have been uneventful. I just thought you'd like to hear this little story, since the Game Commission in Ohio has repeatedly said that we don't have any wolves or panthers of any kind here in Ohio. I do know that some people have brought these big cats into their homes as pets, and a few of them have most likely let them go once they got too big to handle. My guess is that that is the case with many of these big cats. But this wolf or coyote hybrid, I can't begin to imagine that somebody actually had that thing as a pet at one time. So I'm pretty certain that it is either some radical hybrid or has been around a very long time and gone unnoticed by humans in order to get it that big. Feel free to use my name only if you want. Have a great day, my friend. And P.S. You mentioned about those punks smashing things inside that mall in Toronto, and you said that you just can't conceive of that happening in your area. Well, as it turns out, the Bible actually foretold this type of behavior at 2 Timothy 3:1-5. It starts out by saying, "But know this, that in the last days, critical times, hard to deal with, will be here." Then it goes on to lay out the attitudes of the general populace during the last days, which we are living right now. I encourage you to read that passage in the Bible. It's very informative. Again, I hope you have a great week. All right, appreciate that email. And here's the photo. Now, okay, hold on a second. Let me go back in the email. That said, okay, come on. Where'd you mention the, what do you say? It was 200 yards? 200 feet. 200 feet. So that's 60 yards? It was pretty tough to get a picture of anything in a blizzard, right? But it's obviously snowing hard. Now, do I think that's a wolf? No, I don't. I'm sorry to say. And just so you guys know, for me, I'm not trying to sling my dick. I'm just telling you the facts. I've had my hands on around 200 dead wolves in my lifetime, all right? I've seen a lot of them. Dropped them, hunted them, a lot, and that's not a wolf. Wolves are very, very tall. We're talking ridiculous tall, long legs. They float on top of the snow, and their tails are held straight out behind them. And if it's that alpha, it's usually straight up, curled up over his back. Pointed ears, long neck, longer body. It's not a wolf. Could it be a free coyote? Looks like it. Low to the ground, kind of a little chunky, stocky, but obviously does look kind of weird. Who knows? Maybe that's even that great big raccoon. But that's not a wolf. Not a wolf. Anyways, I appreciate that email, man. I appreciate the email. And I'll read that passage too. Now, who's next? Hairy man, 2 varieties, First Nation. All right. We got a mixed bag here, older and newer emails. All right, you guys. Hello, I really enjoy how to hunt. My father passed away a couple years ago. He lived south of Wilburton, Oklahoma. I spent a month with him before he passed. A local lady had been staying with him and providing care. Her husband would stop by and spend time. They're both First Nation, and he is a member of the Choctaw tribe. It's Choctaw tribe. Sorry, you guys. One day he was telling me about moving to the area back in the 70s or 80s, and that his grandfather told him to not let small children outside by themselves. His grandfather had worked on the roads and bridges in the area during the old WPA projects in the 30s and 40s, and told him that there were two different varieties of hairy men, one large and one small. The grandfather told him the small variety were the ones that would lure children by playing peekaboo. The conversation was not prompted by me, and I had never brought up the subject, although it was very interesting because no one ever mentions the small variety. Do you hear of them? Keep up the great content, John Fuller. Excuse me. Yeah, John, we've heard of the little people a lot, especially from the First Nations, and to the best of my recollection and memory, 100% of everyone writing in about them says they're up to no good. Do I have any experience with them? Not at all. Do I know anybody that's seen one of these little people? Not me yet. Do I believe it? Yep. There's far too many witnesses and far too much history going back with the First Nations people, especially about it. Appreciate the email, man. This next email is titled, Blue Ridge, Alberta, Christmas Creek. This is a familiar name. I may have read this. We'll see. Hi, Steve. My name is... Can I even use your name? I hate it, obviously, you guys. You know when somebody writes their first name right at the beginning of the email and then at the end, oh, don't use my name. And then it just kills me to edit it out. I'll just use the first name. Hi, Steve. My name is Mark. I'm a Canuck living in Iraq. That's random. I've been hunting and trapping since I was 12, and I did a lot of hunting at Christmas Creek near Simpson Logging Road, where you've seen the juvenile. Our friends set up hunting camp there at Christmas Creek for the past 45 years, who know the country and animals well. One night, my buddy and his hunting camp heard some noises down by the creek, thinking it was a bear. Then it was apparent there was two animals, but they were warbling to each other in a deep guttural sound back and forth. I know of no large mammal that makes that sound or is capable of it. When he yelled in this direction, it let out a low-toned roar and shriek, and both of them bolted out of the creek and ran through the brush away from camp. I'll get my buddy to give you the detailed story when I track him down. What kilometer did you have your sighting on the Simpson Road? Huh? That wasn't me, man. I absolutely believe they are an intelligent, powerful species. The two recent Russian videos are for me, the best I've seen. Nothing I know of moves that fast or is that large. Thanks, take care, man. Mark. All right, yeah, the Russian video on YouTube, I've seen that. And it does look pretty crazy, right? But yeah, I didn't see that. You must have got me mixed up with reading somebody's encounter on here with the Simpson Road, because I've never even been there. But anyway, appreciate the email, man. And the link. Two encounters, title of this email. First off, thanks for the channel. I enjoy hearing all the other stories and how people reacted to their encounters. Makes me feel that my reaction is normal, if there is such a thing after this. My first encounter was in the deep Adirondack forest. My brother and I were on a guy's camping trip. We loaded my pickup with enough supplies to get us through the week, and off we went. We didn't have a plan, so we just drove as deep into the forest as my 4x4 would take us and set up camp. We were miles from anyone else and had no issues the first night. However, on the second night, my brother shook me awake, asking me, Jay, did you effing hear that? I lay silent for a few minutes, and then I hear a deep howl/scream like nothing I've ever heard before. I wasn't really scared, more stunned. I knew whatever made that noise was big, so I loaded the shotgun I had in the tent with double-aught buckshot and lay there awake till the next morning. We packed up our shit and went home. I'm an avid hunter from October through March, and I'm hunting every chance I get, usually every day. In the off-season, I'm preparing for October, and I've seen and heard every animal in the woods. And much like you, it doesn't bother me a bit to hike into the woods in the pitch black to get to my stand an hour before light. My love of the outdoors over the past 30 years has allowed me to see some crazy shit. My second encounter came on a coyote hunt in the Finger Lakes region of New York. Two of my buddies and I were set up on a large cut field midwinter around 2 or 3 in the morning. Needless to say, it was very, very quiet. You could hear the snow fall. We set up and started calling. And about 30 minutes into the hunt, while the call was off, a sound came from the opposite side of the field, 500 yards away. Excuse me. And I say sound because the only way I can explain it is if you have ever seen the dinosaur shows when a T-Rex screams, it was like that, only more pissed off, like a war cry. Excuse me. It moved down the other side of the field very quickly and then back to the spot it originated, never breaking out in the field from the tree line. It was so incredibly loud, angry, and from so far away I said, "What the F was that?" The other two didn't say a word. We grabbed our shit and left. 3 grown men with rifles, all well versed in the outdoors and in pretty good shape, decided to leave rather than find out what was on the other side of that field. I've mentioned it a couple times since then, and they will not talk about it, like they don't want to remember it, and I can't blame them. I've told a few people about what happened when the topic comes up, and they just laugh it off like I'm joking, and for some reason they can't wrap their heads around what I'm saying is true. And that's all I have so far. Keep fighting the good fight and screw the haters. Jay Cretel. Yeah, screw the haters, Jay. I appreciate your honesty, man, and coming forward. Big time appreciate that email. And welcome to the club. Here's another one. This is titled Oregon Bigfoot. Hey Steve, I'll try to keep this short and sweet. I'm a logger from Western Oregon, 26 years old now. I've been in the woods since the day I was born, hunting, fishing, mushroom hunting, and everything in between. Been logging since practically the day I got out of high school as well. To be short, I know the woods and everything out there. Now, I've always wanted to be a believer. I wouldn't call this a sighting by any means, but it was enough for me. One day mid-fall, I decided to walk down into a remote draw, to look for chanterelles, hedgehogs, and maybe a shed horn or two. At about half a mile in, I was in the bottom of the draw, keeping my eyes on the ground for mushrooms, of course, and there was a big swampy spring in the bottom. And out in the corner of my eye, I noticed 3 tracks in the mud. And as I walked over to check them out, I noticed they were huge human foot tracks. And I know what a bear stepping in his own tracks looks like, but this is no bear. These were huge. To put it in perspective, I wear a size 14 wide shoe, and they dwarfed my Romeos by at least 4 inches. And they were fresh. Fresh enough, the moss was still pressed down and not full of water yet. And needless to say, every hair on my body stood straight up and automatically started to feel like something was right there watching me. I wish I still had the pictures, but I had them on a phone, and I ended up losing that phone at work, so no pictures anymore. But I can't say I've ever felt so uneasy, and nothing in the woods really makes me uneasy. I couldn't tell you how long it took me to get out of that draw, but it felt like forever. Almost like I walked backwards with my 9mm pistol out the whole way up the draw, so whatever it was wouldn't come up behind me. One of the craziest experiences of my life, and I won't soon forget the feeling. I wish now I would have seen the thing, but the tracks right in front of my own face in the mud, in the middle of nowhere, in the bottom of a deep, dark timber hole was enough for me. Anyhow, if you get around to this and feel it's worthy, go ahead and share. Thanks, Steve, Matt Clark. Excuse me, I think I may have shared that a long time ago, Matt. I'm not sure, but it was in here in this folder marked as unread. And I appreciate that email. There's nothing better than people just boldly coming out, sharing what they saw, and that's all there is to it. That's what they saw, period. It's the truth. Take it or leave it, right? Boom. In your face. Welcome to the club. This next email is titled, The Amish Sasquatch. That's a different title. Hello, Steve. First, I want to thank you for all the hard work you're doing. The scenery and the stories are just pure gold. Thank you. They remind me so much of my growing up years in northwest Montana. I grew up in an old order Amish community in the middle of the Kootenay National Forest. We had no electricity, no media other than print, and lived largely off the land, logging, ranching, and woodworking. All of us spent much time outdoors, and I think we all had a passion and love for the land and animals around us. Myself, perhaps, more than most. Hunting and fishing stories dominated all conversations, with fall hunting and fishing providing plenty of good stories. I've heard and read quite a few Sasquatch stories in my time and have always been on the lookout. I've never seen hide or hair of it myself. I will stay vigilant, however. I remember the first one very clearly. As I was in first or second grade, it happened to our school teacher and his family. They had gone camping at a nearby mountain lake, and during the night heard unearthly screams. There was a rock slide across the lake where the large rocks were rolled and tossed in the lake. They spent a sleepless night and left the next afternoon, seeing no signs of anyone else. Our school teacher's dad was also the deacon of our church, and I remember wondering why he was ashamed to tell the tale. Something I understand better now, knowing the stigma associated with Sasquatch. It was thought by most the family had been tricked by someone. Not thing. And folks found something else to talk about soon enough. And later in life, that mountain and the lake were my happy place, and I spent all the time there I could. I found a cave near the lake where I stored camping gear. I worked in different states and countries, but would at any opportunity take a quick trip. In the late 90s, after the local economy had been halted by preservationists, the Forest Service put up bear warning signs, along with a lot of others, and dug out pits in the trail leading up to the lake. They discouraged people in other ways too, releasing grizzlies and black bear from Yellowstone and Glacier at the trailhead. Most of those came down to feed at local garbage bins. Were soon eradicated, however. I don't have any good explanation for them keeping people out of the forest, but throughout my life they have more and more restrictions in place. A few years ago I heard a small fire had started up behind the lake on the mountain. Small lightning fires are common, so I didn't think much of it, and took my own little family for a quick trip up there. Well, it wasn't a small fire, and after taking pictures, we got out of there. I called the local forest station and was told they couldn't do anything. Too busy. A week went by, they let it burn, all of it, all the way down, 8 miles to the community, where it burned houses, barns, and was only barely contained by the locals for the most part. My happy place is now off limits, too dangerous because of burnt trees falling, they say, and now the sign says I will face a $5,000 fine if caught entering the trailhead. Sad. If that dead standing timber had been made into 2x4s, I could still live where I want to, and hike to the most beautiful place I ever knew. But lesson learned, preservationists will burn everything to get people out of an area sometimes. Life goes on, and this world is full of beautiful places. I'll keep searching for the next one. Thanks for sharing your space with all of us. Keep it up, Joe. Yeah. Well, I hope you're doing well, Joe, and appreciate that email. That stuff, well, you guys know my attitude by now. I don't comply. Not when it's radical nonsense. I don't comply. You're not keeping me out of the natural world. It's not going to happen. But there you go. Isn't that amazing how many times it's been reported they keep you out of there after something's gone down with this so-called stuff that doesn't really go down, right? Now, what is this next one? Hold on a minute. Mark this as read. This is titled My Bigfoot Encounter. The second encounter I realized it always stayed downwind of me. Oh, is that 2 emails? I guess the follow-up email after this was, the second encounter I realized that it always stayed downwind of me. All right. In my 27 years on this earth, I've had 2 encounters. I live in Illinois in the middle of Jersey and Calhoun County on my family's farm. The first one was when I was 7 years old. I was sitting in the house. I just got done watching cartoons. I looked out the window like I always do to look for deer. And then out of the creek right next to the road, a female and her baby climbed out of the creek. It took her 2 steps, and she was across the road and in my yard. I tried to tell my mom what I saw, but she didn't believe me. The second time I was deer hunting on my property, the same property as the first time. It was 2015, first session of the first day of shotgun season. It was about 20 till daylight, but the moon was full enough to where you could see the outlines of trees and stuff. So I think he meant 20 minutes. I was looking in the harvest corn field in front of me, and then I thought I seen something move coming towards me in the woods. It was about 40 yards away, and I seen something big in a little clearing stop in the woods. It was kind of swaying with the wind, and then it started to walk towards me. Remind you that I'm in a deer stand 12 feet up in the air. The big thing kind of vanished in the brush about 3 minutes, and then about 3 minutes go by, and all of a sudden I see it right underneath me. I froze solid. I think I was in shock at first. Then it raised its arm up, starting to reach for me. His fingertips touched my boot. When it did that out of nowhere, I said, "Hi," really soft. When it did that, it put its arm down really fast. I took a step back, and it sounded like it growled at me. Less than a minute, it turned and walked off kind of fast. It disappeared into the brush, and by that time the sun was starting to come up, and I never found no trace or sign. Thank you for reading this. My name is Dustin. Holy shit, Dustin. That is life-changing PTSD-forming crazy-ass shit right there. No thanks. I don't think anybody wants that to happen. Sounds like you survived it. If you want to follow up and email me again with some updates or how you're making out since then, I'd love to hear about it. Hear how you're doing. Appreciate that. Here's another one. This is titled, I think that made myself noticed by these damn things is the title of this email. Hello, Steve. I emailed you a few months back about an experience I had on my motorcycle about 6 years ago. I never told anyone about the encounter before writing to you. I'm a very skeptical guy. I'm an auto repair shop owner in business for 28 years and was in the Naval Reserves, 51 years old. I love to fish and hunt. Ducks, really the only thing I hunt. And anyway, since I told my story to you and my family, I've passed the place I had the encounter, and I've really been thinking of it way more. I've gone duck hunting since I told my story. 6 years have passed since I had the encounter that scared literally the piss out of me. Nothing has happened, but both times that I've hunted since, something has. It's close to where I saw what I saw that night 6 years ago. It caught my eye as I sat in my blind in the Maurepas Swamp, WMA. It was intentional. I know it was. It made me irritated, it made that irritated, almost painful groan I heard 6 years ago. I could feel that it wanted me to know that it knew I'd been thinking of it and tell my story. I was swiping at the thick amount of mosquitoes and looking up at the sky for birds, and I could feel a strong sense to look to the right, and it scared me to have that feeling. I looked and saw this damn thing about 80 yards leaning up against a willow tree. It was at least 8 feet tall and 4 feet wide, and I could see its arms clearly, muscle-bound, and almost signaling, "Here I am. Remember me, you MFer?" And I cannot convey the fear I had, Steve. I couldn't move or breathe. It stood there and talked to me somehow in my mind. It was saying, "I'm here, and you know who I am." I looked away for 30 seconds, cleared the tears from my eyes, and looked up, and it was gone. I know it sounds insane. Is this thing tracking now that it's been on my mind or telling my family? 1 month later, I went fishing in my canoe for some bass about 12 miles from where I hunted, and the same damn thing happened to the T. Only this time it was closer, and I was even more scared, if possible. It was on the bank this time, and I could see its eyes and face. And like you said, I think people should know these things are there, or here, or everywhere. Who knows? I'm not going to stop telling people about this, because if people know, they can watch where they go, And this bastard seems to know that I'm telling people. Thanks for all you do, Steven. And keep telling us stories. People need to know about these bastards. My name is Kelly Welch. You can use my name if you want, so others will know. Normal, everyday, skeptical 51-year-old men with teenagers and a wife can't be crazy. And there you go. Appreciate that email. Kind of concerned for how your life's been going. If you're still hanging with us, if you would, why don't you give us an email back and give us an update on what's going on? And I'm sure by now you possibly have heard of a few methods that might possibly work to thwart these in-your-face experiences, right? So the word on the street is, we own it. And they have to, allegedly, they have to follow our command. And you can tell them to leave you alone, period. I do it. It seems to work, sort of works for me. But I don't have anything like that going on in my life. Not yet. Is it going to happen? Probably. For the most part, you guys see how much how often I go in the middle of nowhere, and I seem to be somewhat left alone. Nobody wants to ruin it for me. Although I do get tested each year, it seems, once or twice a year, but nothing terrifying. Well, except for a year before last, I guess I got terrified, but whatever. Anyways, no more babbling. It's bedtime. I'm going to bed. But yeah, if you could email us back, if you want to, email back and let us know if anything else has happened, all right? Because I am very curious to know what's up, what's going on with this being in you. It's not cool. I don't think. But that's it. Short one for today, folks. Share my story at howtohunt.com. And the countdown to coming home is now. See you tomorrow.